Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we are in Cleveland, Mississippi. Shakespeare famously said, "If music be the food of love, play on." And who knows more about music than the Grammys? We're here at the Grammys Museum of Mississippi, right here in the heart, the whole land that created blues and R&B. Let's go see what we can find out.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
Music is one of the lifebloods of culture, and the Grammy Museum exists to cherish and celebrate all aspects of it. Upon entering, you're greeted with a timeline of some of the most current winners to get you in the mood for music. These hallowed halls bring together musicians from all decades, so tag along with us. The actual Grammy Award is, of course, named and designed after a classical gramophone. Though the coveted award has changed shape a few times over the years, one constant has been that receiving one is music's highest honor. This first room of the museum allowed you to see the different iterations that the award has taken and how it's evolved throughout the years. What would a Grammy museum be if you couldn't see some actual Grammys? The Grammy Awards have been around since 1959, and in those early years, there were only a handful of awards that went out. Now, in present day, that has grown to over 80 awards given out each year. Definitely a lot of music appreciation to go around. While the actual artists are usually the ones that spring to mind first when talking about the Grammys, several of the awards are reserved for songwriters, producers, and other people involved in different aspects of music creation. It's also very important to note that the Grammy Awards are not determined by popularity, sales, anything like that. It is voted on by an entire panel of music industry peers. Walking by this long wall helps solidify just how long the Grammys have been around and been a part of the music world. I really appreciated that it was separated into the different colors, which not only made it look really cool, but did a great job of distinguishing one decade from the next decade. The pictures on there each highlighted different big moments of the music world and signified changes to the Grammys, such as going from one music genre being on top to maybe the arrival of new things. It was very informative and brought back a lot of nostalgia. And they couldn't show you all these great groups without giving you a chance to sample some of the music. They had a vast collection of recent winners and all their hit songs that you could throw on some headphones and jam out to. The details everywhere you looked were fantastic. Even the columns that were holding things up had inside of them records and songs of winners, as well as what decade they'd come from on the outside of it. You could check it out and say, hey, that's what was popular in the 1990s. Really liked it. Everything in the museum had been done up to about 2019, so the 2010s were covered, but they hadn't yet started on the 2020s. I can't wait to see what new things are going to get brought in once they hit that time period, though. Of course, the outfits that people wear to the Grammys are a very big deal, just like the Academy Awards. So, they had on display some of the outfits of music's biggest stars, such as Taylor Swift. Lady Gaga is, of course, known for some pretty crazy out there dresses, but they chose to go for one of her more glamorous ones here. Though, I wouldn't have minded if they would have had something like the meat dress. That would have definitely been unique. This is actually not the only Grammy museum. The original is in Los Angeles, and they've recently opened one up in Nashville, Tennessee, inside one of the Hall of Fames. However, this one here in Mississippi is able to feature a little bit more in depth of the creation of the blues, R&B, anything that kind of came from this Delta area is really what they tried to focus on. They still had a smattering of everything else to give you a good rounded experience, but they definitely wanted to key in on music that came from the South. So keeping that in mind, don't be surprised if the majority of the artifacts and everything that you see here in the museum are from people either from the South or heavily associated with Southern music, country music, things like that. Such as right here, Beyonce, who hails from Houston, Texas. This little display case was pretty funny because it seemed to exist only to show off Garth Brooks' love of baseball. He participated in one of the spring trainings, and they were like, hey, let's throw his uniform up in there. So they did. Continuing with the red carpet theme, they really wanted to showcase the people that had gone way out there and done the bold, extravagant, crazy things. This would have been the perfect place to put one of Lady Gaga's insane costumes, if they had it. I think this CeeLo green outfit here, probably one of my favorite items that I got to see. Very colorful, very interesting. I bet it was cool seeing him actually walking around with that. And a couple of the outfits you'll recognize from actual performances that happened during the Grammy Awards. This one from Katy Perry was used during her concert, and the candy on there actually spins. One advantage of having the museum here in the South was they got to really dive in to one of the most iconic studios that has ever existed, which of course is Willie Mitchell's Royal Studios. Some of the biggest legends and icons of music ever, all recorded here at this same studio. Even greats like the Beatles had been associated with this wonderful place. The countless gold and platinum records, all of the celebrities that came through, the hit songs. This is a place that truly, if the walls could talk, would have stories to tell for ages. I don't know what kind of magic was going on there, but it was definitely something special. There was even dresses and used instruments from the people that had recorded here. I'm honestly surprised that this isn't all in a museum, possibly in the building where the studio is, but I guess when the Grammys want to put you in their museum, you tend to let them do it. Of course, Al Green and the High Top Band were mentioned several times throughout this, as they were part of the huge success. With all that duct tape and as much travel as it's definitely seen, I'm surprised that case has even lasted this long. And of course a few of the actual awards that were won, thanks to this wonderful little studio. Speaking of instruments, there was no shortage of amazing instruments from amazing people. Here they had left them for display so that the whole world would get a chance to see just exactly how their favorite tunes were made. They had different blurbs about famous musicians who had used particular instruments, and then lots of them that you could see here. There was a trumpet from Miles Davis, there was a guitar from B.B. King, just countless amazing items. They also made sure to add in people who used electronic mediums instead of actual physical instruments to make their music. Things like amps that help the music get out there, of course. And pretty much had at least one example of any instrument you can think of. The golden keytar there was really interesting. I don't think I've actually seen one of those in person. And you could check out the drum set of Bruno Mars. Diving more into the history of music in general, the Landmark Wall pointed out key moments in different years where extremely explosive things had happened that really changed the face of music. You had everything spanning from Elvis and the Beatles up through Woodstock, Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix dying, just all the different things you could think of right here. MTV changing the game with the music videos out there, the huge Live Aid concert with Queen, Kurt Cobain dying. It was a really cool little crash course in the history of music. And being a surprise to nobody, they then had several areas where you could sample some of the biggest hits from all these decades of music, just to get a little taste of what it was like back then. This section is where things went really all in on the whole Delta Blues Mississippi vibe. You got to see such greats as Pop Staples and his importance to the entire blues scene. They had some great items from his earlier days, even one of his guitars here on display. They added some more modern day people, such as Faith Hill, who of course is one of the superstars of country music. And you can't talk about this area without talking about Elvis. All of these stars have one thing in common. They were born here in Mississippi. It's incredible that all these huge names were all born within just a few hundred miles of each other. There must be something in the water over there in Mississippi. A really fascinating section that they put together here was all about the power of women in country music and how they had been such a driving, integral force to this brand of music, with some extremely talented vocal powerhouses. You started out with Patsy Montana and a lot of the kind of older day foundations where the roots had really started of women getting on stage, being able to play and sing, and just really build up this genre of music. That, of course, led us to some new greats, such as the one and only Dolly Parton, who performed at the Grammys very recently. Even BTS is a fan of Dolly. Dolly Parton is one of those people that everybody knows. She's got a very distinct style. I love the butterflies down her banjo there. And of course, Loretta Lynn was in that same field of really empowering women and keeping that country groove alive, maybe changing it a little bit, but always pushing it and progressing it further. And the work of all these greats, like Shania Twain, Patsy Cline, all together pushed us to where we are today, with some other musical greats that may sound a little more familiar, such as Rosanne Cash, Faith Hill, Carrie Underwood, and America's sweetheart herself, the one and only Taylor Swift. Thanks to all these amazingly talented women, country music and music in general has never been the same. One of the greatest things about this museum is how interactive it was. They had a booth where you could go in and see what it was like as a singer and actually record a little bit of music, kind of get that experience, and then once you were done with that, you could move over to the producing booth. Here, you could see what it was like to edit and change around the music that had been recorded. Really gave you that hands-on experience. And if you really wanted to be part of the music, right next door, they had an entire stage set up with all different instruments that you could get up there and give it a shot, playing whatever your heart said to play. Giving people the chance to really create the music on their own was an awesome little touch and something that I think will make this place memorable for everybody who comes by. But my personal favorite thing here was this Mississippi Music Bar. This whole wall was filled with signatures that were actually carved into it of all famous musicians, and spotlighted in the middle was some of the, of course, Mississippi greats that had come from here, that had made marks, that had been legendary musicians in their times. There was items like Elvis's report card, and other insane memorabilia, including handwritten lyrics to famous songs. This really stood out to me. I appreciated that it was so focused on the area that the museum was actually in, and it was one of those things that you're not going to get to see even if you went to a different Grammy museum. This was something very unique to this particular place, and I really, really liked it. They did an awesome job of gathering together artifacts and memorabilia from different years, putting them together here, having the pictures next to them, and there was musicians like NSYNC who knew that they had any ties at all to Mississippi, and yet they did. There were some more things here that were all from the personal lives of people from the area. It was just a great spotlight collection, and in my opinion, one of the centerpieces of this museum. And in the heart of the Mississippi Music Bar was a beautiful, ever-shifting tapestry of different musical talents. This huge tablet was constantly drifting by with different artists, different genres, different music. You could select and play any of them that you wanted to hear their music, or after you selected something, you could throw it across the screen to somebody who was standing on the other side, and they could listen to it. It made music shareable and an experience that brings everybody together, just the way that music should be. No matter what language you speak or where you're from, music is something that we can all relate to. Well, my name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for tagging along. We'll see you next week. Avast, mateys! Join our crew as we search for treasure out on the high seas. But be warned, there be pirates about. Ha 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 ha!